Welcome back to Watch Your Mouth,
where therapy meets culture.
Raw, real, and
rooted in healing. So today I think it'll be really important for us to talk about friendship.
What about your friends? Will they stand their ground? Will they let you down? Hey.
I didn't even know she could sing. So see, there are so many things we don't know about our friends. So this is today, I think, really a love letter to friendship.
Yes.
Not like a Hallmark card friendship, but more like a
mahogany card.
Okay, mahogany card.
Right?
Come with the yes.
Okay,
hello.
listen, and when a friend is thoughtful and they get you that kind of card, you
that.
open it up and you see yourself reflected.
You already know it's more than 99 cents.
Right, and you know they're being thoughtful. Because one thing that makes me crazy is I don't want to be rude when I say this, but I don't need a card with two white ladies on the front. And it's about me and you.
Yeah.
I'm brown.
Yeah. We're also going to be talking about like the messy and nourishing parts of friendship. This love letter would include, friends that touch our soul and, might even leave us feeling a little bit lonely. Mm-hmm. So more about friendship when we come back.
Hi, it's Dr. Hall again. I just wanted to share with you a little bit about my private practice, Hall Consultation and Therapy Services. And so, as I mentioned to you all before, I work with couples mostly, individuals, and families. I'm a marriage and family therapist. And so, at my practice, I, provide all kinds of good therapeutic services to support families. So, at Hall Consultation and Therapy Services, I work to support families and help them find healing. One of the other fun little things I love to do is also some supervision, and I also do consultation with practices. So thanks so much for letting me tell you a little bit about Hall CTF. Thanks
a lot for tuning in today.
Quick reminder, don't forget to hit the button and subscribe.
And like. Is it like and subscribe?
Yes.
Okay, because I don't want
to... Or subscribe and like.
Okay.
Oh, like, subscribe, and hit the little bell so that you're notified when we post new podcast episodes.
Yeah. So I have a lot of people that ask me, like, what is the purpose of friends if they're going to let you down, or they're not going to show up the way you'd like them to, or some kind of way they're going to take much more than you want to give in a friendship. I hear that often.
That sounds to me like someone who's been hurt by friends, someone who's been disappointed in friendship, right? Because good friendships that are balanced, and even when I think about what balance means, I think about friendships where really there's a good sense of give and take in the relationship. Mm-hmm. And even though this isn't where we were necessarily going, right? It makes me think of two of my good friends. So I have one of my best friends from like back in the day. We've been friends forever. One of the nice things about that relationship is that I never keep score. I don't think about it, right? If we go to lunch, if they pay the tab, fine. If I pay it, like, it's not a big deal, right? But the reason that we can do that is because we've never been wounded in that area. Because I have other friends who have been much more like, oh, give me that bill. Oh, somehow every time we go to lunch, the bill is short. You don't factor in the tax and the tip somehow. And so this is the kind of friend where I learned early on, like, hold up, separate checks, right? Because something is always going to be funny. And I think that I'm talking, I know, right? The money's going to be funny. But the thing is that what I'm hearing you talk about is someone who's not talking about the financial side of that, but maybe the emotional side of that, that something has happened where they've fallen short. They've gotten the short end of the deal somehow. And so they're genuinely asking this question around, like, what's the value in friendship?
Yeah, but I think you raise a really good point in that there is an understanding, at least for me, and what I talk about with students and with clients, is any type of human interaction is going to have some conflict.
Well,
so you almost have to prepare yourself to feel let down, to feel disappointed, to know that a conflict is coming. And it really is, going back to what you were saying, this idea, have I healed my wounds enough to be able to not just have a rupture in the relationship, but also have a repair.
But see, I feel like you're highlighting a couple of things. I think you just said something really powerful that we might want to break down and sort of slow down, because I think you're talking about conflict being a natural part of a relationship. And if I was just walking down the street thinking about this casually, that might be a little bit scary. But then you just talked about there being conflict but not a rupture. And I think a lot of people don't have the experience of saying, we had conflict, we were able to kind of like work it through, something happened that I didn't like, I felt hurt, I felt disappointed, and that not breaking the relationship. So how do you think about conflict in friendship and the kinds of conflicts that are repairable and can actually lead to a more solid relationship moving forward?
Yeah, I think the way I think about it is the way you originally framed it. I have to make sure that I do the work. And the work that I do is really taking a look at, how do I show up as a friend? What kind of things am I doing and not doing? And what is the expectation I have of the person that I'm calling friend? So am I showing up late but expecting you to be on time?
Right.
Am I, spending a bunch of money on lunch and expecting you to pay for it? Are my expectations outside of what I would value in friendship? So when people say, I really want to have good friends, they come to session and they're just like, I'm not sure why my friends are not showing up for me. How come I don't utilize them as a resource? I can't count on them. I got to do it myself. Then we really have to take a look at the person and what they're doing. So you claim you want to have certain things in a friendship. You want them to exhibit certain behaviors and have certain connections. Are you showing up as a friend who would be able to connect with individuals that way? So am I being authentic? Am I sharing my feelings? Am I demonstrating to people that I know how to be the person of my word and do and participate in actions that, definitely, I've lost my train of thought that quick. Am I a person that honors my word? Do I do what I say that I'm going to do and say what I'm going to do, and it actually is, forgot that.
Like, it actually meets and connects. Yeah.
Thank you.
But you reminding me when you said that piece around like, what's the expectation you have in friendship, right? So you remember on Housewives, whatever many years ago it was, when Cynthia came with with the friendship contract, right? Like, people have so many jokes about that, and they clowned her. And I really thought, you know what? That was actually a brave thing to do.
Yes, it was.
Because we have expectations of our friends, and rarely do we write that down and go, hey, is this something that you can actually agree to? And is this something that you're willing to commit to? And that's the part about that I liked, was like, let's put this on paper, or, in real life, do you need to write this out? No. But you're talking about saying, like, hey, this is who I am, this is sort of how I operate, does that work for you? This is how I show up in the world, here's how I give, here's what I expect, and there being room to have that kind of conversation. So whether, and truthfully, I think a lot of people have friendship contracts. Again, they're just not out loud.
That's true. We keep score. We monitor what a person is doing. We remind them of the faults they have. We never let go. So how is that any different than writing down what my belief system is of the role of friendship? And I think basically what she was doing was manifesting exactly what she wanted to have in her life.
Right.
She spelled it out and shared it with a person who was going to be taking up the role of the friend.
Right. Now, we're not going to talk more about what has happened with that friendship because, again, we are licensed clinicians, and so
we're supposed to be rooted in healing.
Right. So should they want to do some healing work on their relationship, you know where to reach us. Okay, Pierce Counseling and Consultation, Hall Consultation and Therapy Services. All right. So, but it sounds like you've been having lots of conversations with clients about sort of what's at the heart of friendship.
Yeah. I think for a lot of people, friends serve as chosen family.
100%.
And so,
thank God.
Yes. When we talk about someone that nourishes us, that refills us, that validates our experience, we turn to friends. We feel like we want to have a solid group. And I think the other thing is we fantasize what friendships are supposed to do. So the other part of conversations that I'm having with some clients is how they feel let down.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they feel even lonelier, even though they have a list of individuals that they hang out with.
Yeah. You know, this might be a good time to mention that we actually have a friend and colleague who has become a certified friendship expert, actually. And I wonder if this would be a great moment to sort of check in with them.
Oh, that's a good idea. Put down in the comments how we should frame, if it's not a friendship contract, how we should frame what we want in friendships, especially as adults. Because it's no longer, you know, we're meeting individuals that have the same hours that we have, go to the same schools, participate in the same sports events, have the same, you know, hobbies. Instead, these are intentional acts that we're making to connect with other adults that have, you know, their own idea of what friendships look like.
Yeah. You know, you're mentioning also, you're jogging my memory, because I feel like a lot of my clients have talked about how hard it is to make friends as an adult because of the very thing that you're talking about, right? Like, especially, you know, when you've had like a really robust and beautiful like college experience. And I've had to remind people that the reason that people's college experiences stay so strong in their minds is because there are unique factors that happen that don't happen at any other time in your life. At no other time in your life will you be living with people who are within your age bracket in the way that you are, that are experiencing the same things, where you're having, you know, these cultural moments with. After college, you know, you move to different cities, you're friends with a wide range of people, right? Wide groups, you're working, right? But this was such a unique time where you lived, went to class, socialized with specific groups of people. And so that fantasy can get in the way of, well, how do I make new relationships now? What risks am I willing to take in order to put myself out there in order to form friendships? And I think being a good friend doesn't depend on whether or not someone is introverted or extroverted. This is the conversation that we have a lot, right? Because she tells me that I'm real introverted.
It's the truth.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
But the truth of the matter is, let's be clear, I'm very clear that she is extroverted, right?
Which I disagree with, because I think when we talk about friendships, I think one of the things you mentioned is really important to remember. At Peers Counseling, we have a lot of clients that focus on transitions. Part of that transition from college to now you're living in the real world is an understanding that there's some grief and loss that you'll be processing. But there's also an understanding that you may have proclaimed that you were an extrovert in college. And because of the context, it was really easy to look that way because there were groupings of individuals doing some similar things. Class projects, going to the dorms, sports events. And so now extroversion looks different as an adult. Doing solo trips, having fun with yourself, teaching others how you want to be treated is fundamentally how adults begin the formation of adult friendships.
See, I think teaching people how you want to be treated, knowing the answer to that question is sometimes really hard, right? Because, you know, I consider myself an extroverted introvert, right? I'm a Cancer. And so I recognize I can pull into my little shell, but, you know, I can also, you know, scuttle about and do my thing, right? More like a hermit crab than like a Maryland crab, you know what I'm saying, right? I go to library into my shell. I love to read. Oh my goodness. Snuggle up on the couch, right? But this piece around how do you teach people what is meaningful to you, right? So you and I have never had an issue about one of us being late. And part of it is because we've never been late without telling the person, oh my gosh, it doesn't matter whether it's an hour late or 15 minutes. It's a communication like, oh my gosh, I'm running late, my bad, right? And I know how I am. I'm like, please, give people a grace period, right? So I don't worry about that. But the other reason I don't worry is because I know Monica's going to communicate with me and tell me she's not going to leave me hanging, right? I'm not just going to be waiting around randomly outside the movie theater like, I thought you were coming. Right? So how do you do that give and take, right? How do you communicate who I am, how I am, and what's happening in your life? And then what do you accept from people?
Yeah. it definitely requires one component of friendship that is vital to the friendship, and that's vulnerability. So I have to be able to show up, not perfect. I have to be able to show up, you know, being a little messy and
human.
Yeah, the humanness of it all, and you have to be able to offer me some humanity around that.
So this feels like a great time to sort of talk about 3 sort of core foundational components of friendships.
Oh, good. So we mentioned one, vulnerability.
Yeah. Vulnerability is key, right? Can you be transparent? Can you sort of let down your walls enough to show up and recognize I've got soft spots that need attending to?
But you had mentioned one that was really important, this idea of accountability, communication, that is vulnerable but also honest, right? I have to know when I've fallen short or I have somehow disrespected your time by being late. I think the other piece of accountability for me is to be honest about what I can and cannot do. That's right. And when that is disappointing to you, instead of, you know, gaslighting you and saying that it's your fault and that's the way you looked at it, well, that's the way you feel, I have to be able to be accountable and admit, yeah, that probably did create some feelings for you, and not take away that ownership. You know, you have a right to your feelings, and I can be accountable for, you know, the context that I may put those in.
Sure. Right, because I think that's one of the places that folks struggle with, right, is the ability to tolerate the fact that I'm disappointed. Right, like so many folks are so crushed by feeling that I'm disappointed someone else, they can't tolerate their own feeling of it. So then it's like, forget it, I reject you. This is right, and that's where the breakdown can happen in relationships.
I think because friendships are so intimate. They are really aligned with and sometimes parallel to our intimate partnerships.
That's right.
And sometimes I believe I have a higher expectation of my friends. So I know my partner is not going to show up 100% the way, you know, I want. I want my friends to be able to do that, because my friends kind of fill in the gaps of where I might have an emotional need, or where I'm craving, you know, nourishment and healing.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, there's a book that recently came out that's about this, right? Like how American culture in general overvalues romantic relationships, right? And undervalues friendships. And the fact of the matter is that I don't know any relationship that doesn't have components of friendship as part of the ingredients of the relationship, right? Like when family members have good connections, there's a friendship there. It's not the only ingredient, right? Intimate partnerships. People talk about, I want to be friends, and the ones that last long times and are very like healthy have components of friendships in there. Yeah. So I think your point around having high expectations around friendships is so true, and I think it's also why sometimes there's pressure around friendship. Yeah. And people can fall in and fall out. Yeah. And so that leads us to the third component that we wanted to mention, which is emotional capacity, right? Because a good friendship requires there to be enough of a holding environment for your own emotional capabilities and the other person's emotional capabilities. But everybody doesn't have to be at 100% all the time. It's not even possible. Right. Right? Like, you know, you've got friends that might call you on a particular afternoon or a particular evening, and they're like, yo, I got to tell you what's going on, right? And today was a hard day, rough day. I'm exhausted. And I need to be able to say, you know what? Yes, I want to be there for you. I love you. And today I don't have the capacity to hear it. Or sometimes I only have the capacity to hear it. I don't have the capacity to do nothing else. So you can tell me. And I think that links to what you were talking about earlier, right? Accountability and vulnerability. Because can I be honest enough to say to my friend, sis, I ain't got it today. I don't. But at the same time, maybe I'm calling because I need to give you something. Do you have the capacity to hold what's going on for me?
And I think at the same time, if we're talking about vulnerability, I've got to take a chance that you might not be able to hold what I need to give you. Yeah. So I have to prepare myself, you know, to be a big girl. So if you say you don't have it today, whatever is going on, I have to be able to be adult enough to hold it and not be so vulnerable that it crushes me that you're not available for me.
Yeah. Because again, there's mutuality in the relationship. So, if you're not available in this moment, that doesn't mean you're not available in other moments, right? And so our previous history has shown me that, maybe today is not the moment or now is not the time, but there will be time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not that every single time I call, you're like, me. I only talk about myself. I only talk about my own needs. That's it. I have no idea what's going on with you, and I never ask you about you.
Right.
Right? Because that's an unbalanced friendship.
Yeah.
Right? And when I'm in trouble, I can call you, but anytime you're in trouble, I can't reach you. Right? That doesn't feel good. And so, again, even though the work that we do is work to help people heal relationships, we also help people identify unhealthy patterns in relationship. And so if there's not sort of balance over time, if there isn't give and take, then we do talk to folks and say, what's happening in this relationship? What are you getting out of this? Is this a friendship? Because the other thing that I'm thinking about is not everybody that you know is your friend, right? Which makes me think about stuff that, like, your mom would be telling you. Like that little person over there that's in your class, that's not your friend. You think that's your friend, but it's not, right? It is okay to say, I have coworkers. It is okay to say I have colleagues. It's okay to say I have acquaintances.
And you're not diminishing who they are to you. They can still be very important. You can still be connected to them. Yes. They can still be people that you entrust certain parts of yourself and information. It doesn't necessarily mean that they hold a space that they pour into you and nourish you and connect with your soul, and you would be able to reciprocate that process with them.
But I think it's okay to say, like, hey, I have some relationships. There are some people who are my inner circle, right? And then like the rings of Saturn. I don't know, the rings of Saturn.
I'm not even sure where that came from.
Right?
How we got to Saturn. That's interesting.
I know, but like concentric circles or something, right? Like you've got people who are like, inner circle, the next layer, the next layer, the next layer, right? So the person 3 layers out might invite me to, like, a birthday party that they're having. That's a huge birthday party. But they might not call me the night that they found out that, something awful happened, right? I might not be inner circle close enough to know that. And I'm okay, right? Like there's some relationships where you're like, no, it makes sense. That's fine. That is where we place each other, right? And so I'm so glad that you mentioned that this doesn't have to be a rank ordering of less than or better than, versus sometimes layers of closeness and layers of connection. Not everyone should have access to every part of you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And
so I think for me it brings up this myth that just because you're not living close the way you did maybe in college or maybe at work, it means that you're not close friends anymore.
I think that's a great point.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people are under the belief system that if I don't see you every day, if I don't hear from you every day, how can you still call me your friend? How can you still love me the same? And I think intimacy when it comes to friendship is not really about proximity.
That's such a great point.
I think people get stuck on that proximity thing, and I think there's also a myth behind this idea that there's a timing to friendship, and so the longer you know a person, you've endured through certain things, that you are automatically friends forever.
Yeah. I think it's okay for friendships to ebb and flow, for friendships to wax and wane, and it's okay to close out a friendship. I don't think that just because you're friends, you have to be friends forever. But I think that there's healthy ways of closing a friendship versus when there's like cut off and, blow ups and, F you, I ain't talking to you ever again kind of situations. Because
I think we're getting back to the idea of a rupture happening and then a decision being made based on the rupture and not checking in with yourself on your emotional capacity and your willingness to be vulnerable with this person that you say you love on a very intimate level. And I think if we go back to the main or vital components of friendship, if we're talking about being vulnerable, if we're talking about being accountable, if we're talking about, this emotional idea for emotional capacity, then what we're really looking at is how healed am I to be able to align and join and spend time with another human who I know isn't perfect, even if there is a conflict, I'm able to move through that with them and have a deeper understanding about how this is going to help us both grow. And that's the thing about pain and discomfort that I really work with my clients around. You're not going to grow if you don't feel uncomfortable. So if you have a friend that you've never disagreed with, you all always get along, you have all this joy, something is not real inside of that relationship.
Well, or it's more surface than you thought about. To your point about being real, right? Because there's parts of you that you have not allowed sort of to show up, and so it is an interesting point to make around what's happening.
Yeah. I don't mean, and I guess I want to clarify that if there is conflict, you necessarily share with the person. So there have been times for the both of us, I felt disappointed, let down because we weren't able to do something that we may have had in the schedule, or realizing that Cadmona is going to be skipping and playing with somebody else, and I wasn't included. And so with that disappointment, I recognize there is conflict. I don't necessarily have to make her the receiver of the conflict, nor do I have to make her responsible for processing that with me. However, I recognize that our friendship has been able to withstand what I felt disappointed about or wanted her to change because I'm invested in doing the work myself, and the love that I have is authentic. So it's real, and I can be accountable for my own disappointment. I can be vulnerable and let her know, oh, I thought we were gonna actually do this together. So it isn't, that's okay, no problem.
Right.
I'm letting her know I'm being vulnerable and letting her know that I feel let down, that this has happened, and I have the emotional capacity to move through the disappointment on my own. Every conflict doesn't involve both people in the relationship. Some conflicts you really do have to work through on your own. That I cannot make her responsible for this unrealistic expectation that everything she does, especially since we've been doing this podcast and we've been having conversations about what's next for us and how we grow together, is really going to be about me. She's married, she's a sister, she's an auntie, she's a daughter, she has other friends, she has couple friends that, don't include me. And so that's what we're talking about when we think about those components of, one, being able to be vulnerable, two, being able to be accountable. I'm letting her know how I feel and what's happening, but having the emotional capacity to really work through some of those things on my own.
Yeah. Well, and I think to your point, it's important to acknowledge both and, right? That there's some homework that is my homework, right? That I need to attend to this. And there are some feelings that I'm feeling that are mine to sort of wrestle with. And then there's figuring out, okay, what is in between us, what is ours, and how do I bring that up so that we can then attend to it. And to me, those are some of the ways in which you're saying conflict might show up. Sometimes it's conflict between, right, that shows up in the relationship, or sometimes it's a conflict that's shown up in either one of us. And figuring out, how do I name this, how do I talk about it, so that it's conflict, it's not the rupture.
So it doesn't dissolve a relationship because I have an expectation she's going to fix it for me, and I'm able to name what it is so that there is at least the ability for her to hold that with me. So yes, you probably are disappointed that I'm not able to show up, and I appreciate you having the emotional capacity to move through this with me.
And one of the things that I think is so important in meaningful relationships that I value is I am not perfect, right? I make mistakes. I'm just a human being. And I know that there's love in my relationships when someone is able to say to me, listen, I really did not care for that, or that hurt my feelings, or listen, can we take a second to talk about this? And I'm not someone who, I guess, this is an important distinction. I don't love confrontation. right? I'm not really a confrontational person. I mean, if you bring it, I could get it. But I'm not trying, right? Like, listen.
If you don't want none, don't have none.
I'm just saying, right? But conflict, like we're talking about, I appreciate honesty and transparency, right? Because the fact of the matter is, as a human being, are you going to disappoint someone? Yes. Are you going to hurt someone? Yes. Are you going to make a mistake? Yes. All relationships have that in there. And when you can bring that up and go, listen, I'm feeling some type of way. And I think it is important to be able to self-soothe enough in the moment to go, I'm about to hear something that's going to not feel great. Let me take a deep breath. Let me keep my ears open. Let me try to be as non-defensive as possible so that I can hear. And I think especially when folks have practiced talking about, hey, this might come out rough. This is still a rough draft, but I'm upset about this. I need you to hear this, right? And you give the other person an opportunity to prepare to hear. Like, this might be hard for you to hear. I need you to do that. Because you're not asking me to agree with you. Right? We haven't even gotten there yet. You're just asking, can you hear the experience I'm having? Agree, disagree might come up later. Or sometimes there's no place for that, right? Like, if I'm hurt, I don't care whether you agree that I'm hurt or not. I'm the only one that can say that, right?
Yeah.
And so again, is there room in there? Because there's no relationship that can thrive without being able to talk about the hard things, right? The places where there may be a breach in relationship, the places where there might be miscommunication. And so, again, this myth that real friends, good friends, best friends, trusted friends never have conflict, it really is a myth. But the marker of good friendships is how we maneuver with conflict.
Yeah. I think another one I think is really important to talk about is that friendships aren't supposed to end. Yeah, and I love how you explained the ebbing and the flowing and the waxing and the waning, because it almost feels like there is a crescendo of friendship, and sometimes they either peter off or they drift away from a lack of tending to. Because friendships are like plants. Lots and lots of plants. They need tending.
Yeah.
Like you do have to give time and energy, and you really have to water and love and communicate with, very similar to a plant, your friends. And if you don't, if you are the receiver of a friendship that you're in where you're not being watered, you don't have any sun, you're not being talked to, there is no time commitment that is being honored for you, then you really have to set a boundary and decide, is this really a friendship?
Can I continue to invest in an area where, again, the other person is not investing? And you can decide based on the nature of the relationship, is this something that we need to talk about, right? Do I want this to change? Do I need to find out what's going on? Or am I going to sort of allow this plant to sort of wither away?
Yeah, because sis, I think what happens frequently is my belief might be that I have this history with this person. They know me. They know my family. We grew up together. I mean, I've heard it all. We've grown up together. We've been friends since second grade. And we're different now. And that is part of the grieving process when a friendship hits a crescendo. And the crescendo might happen in high school. Like, you decided you were going to go to college. This friend decided they were going to do other things. And it could be, go into a trade. It doesn't necessarily have to be, having a baby or getting married. It could just be everybody's not meant for college. You go off to college, or they stay at home and go to college. And so now
you went to college in your state. This person went across the country, right? Or you moved away from home, and this person stayed in their local area. Like you said, there's lots of different diverging paths that lives can take.
And it doesn't mean, because I'm not calling you friend, that we've eliminated our history,
or that there's any malice there.
Correct. Because I think so often it's, you've changed, and I hope to God I've changed since second grade for those friends that have known me for years, and what I'll hear is, you're not the same person you used to be. And it used to carry a weight of shame and embarrassment and lots of explanations from me. And what I've grown to realize is I can lean into the truth. And the truth is, yes, I have changed. I am different.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not cutting class with you and hanging out at the Point, which is a reference to an area in Chicago that is right near Lake Michigan, for those of you that are tuning in, you know, all over the world. It's a beautiful place to watch the sunset, especially if you're a high school student that's supposed to be in algebra class. So I'm not that person. I'm not the person who's listening to albums, and half of you probably don't even know what an album is. So it's a piece of vinyl that you actually put a needle on, and for whatever reason, sound is illuminated from this piece of plastic. So I'm not the same person. So I'm not the person I was before graduate school. I'm not the same person I was before opening a practice. So when people say that, I no longer have the shame and embarrassment. And instead, it's like, you are absolutely right. Yeah. We are two different people now. And I can still love who you were and what that friendship helped me move through, honor that, and recognize that the friendship has evolved into more of a distant past relationship. It doesn't have to be an ex, where, just like you were saying, I hold some malice for, and I wish was dead, and I'm at home plotting and planning. No. Instead, it really is, it holds a tender space.
Exactly.
And it becomes an experience that I get to carry and use in my friendships now.
Oh yeah.
Who doesn't want someone tender and kind that will, follow them to the end and participate in things that, might be a little unethical, maybe a little illegal. Who knows?
No, but you're bringing up a couple of things that are making me think of specific people in my life. I wonder if that's happening for you. Because like right now I'm thinking about, like the first friend I ever made in nursery school, like 3 years old, right? I am thinking about, one of my best friends from high school. And, she ended up, staying in our town. I went off to school. And, by the end of college, we disconnected. And I'm thinking about these people. And again, I wish them well, right? Like, it makes me smile thinking about, moments that we had together. And I hope that life is good. And because of, like, Facebook and things like that, we get to have windows into people now that we didn't get to have before, right? And so sometimes you find out, like, things are looking good. Your life has evolved in lots of different ways, right? And we also know that I don't know where I'm going to be 10 years from now, right? I don't know what that's going to look like. And so I love that you were saying, I have changed, and change can be really good. But sometimes when you change, you have to put something down in order to pick something up, right? And so what are the new things, right? Like, what are the new things that you might be picking up, or the new opportunities that you've taken, risks that you've taken in your life that open up meeting new people? And I do think that as we grow, we need to practice the muscle of meeting new people, right? Like, we've all met that person that's like, nah, I don't need no new friends. I got enough friends. Right? And I think that that's hilarious when people say that as a joke, right? But when people say that in reality, it makes me a little bit sad, because you're limiting the world, right? The world shrinks down. The fact of the matter is that I have no idea where I'm going to be 5 years from now. Yeah. And why couldn't I be friends with somebody from across the country over here, from across the globe, right? Which goes back to your point around proximity is not the component to friendship, right? But presence is. How is this person involved in your life, and how are you involved in theirs?
How are you all showing up for each other?
That's right. Because just because you're neighbors doesn't mean that we're good friends. Yeah. You could talk more to somebody who lives 7,000 miles away than you do to the person that lives down the hall from you, right? And so where are you investing? And I love hearing about people who've had long distance friendships and who have figured out ways to connect and ways to maintain. So if you're doing things like that, would you put that in the comments? Like, what helps you maintain that relationship? Because I feel like talking on the phone, and FaceTime,
Zoom,
is Zoom,
planning visits together,
yes,
taking
that's so
vacations
fun.
where you meet up,
Yes.
yeah, planning those birthdays where it's that pivotal birthday at 30 or 40 or 50 or
Yes.
60, and you're just like, you know what, I'm gonna fly to you, or we're gonna fly to this place together, and we're gonna enjoy each other's company. And I think you could meet a friend that has so many interests that you do, that helps you to flourish. I can tell you the amount of friends that I've created just doing trainings, participating in trainings, and also doing trainings where people find out more about an interest that they love, and you can have conversations around.
Yeah, I met great people, randomly a couple of summers ago, right? I got conned into taking a dance class, right? But it opened up this whole world I didn't even know existed, right? And you're like, okay. Or like several years ago, I decided I had wanted this for a long time. I was like, listen, I'm going to run a 5K. But I didn't even mean like a race. I just wanted to be able to run 3.2 whatever miles. And I did that Couch to 5K program.
Oh,
right?
Yes.
Which has existed for a long time. And I was like, I'm going to do this. And then I moved here, and I moved to Chicago knowing, like, I don't know, 2.5 people, for real. I got invested in work. I met new people, and then after a couple of years, I was like, you know what? I still want to run that 5K. Like, I really, and so I joined a running club, right? Met new people, learned that, because I didn't have a love of running. Let me also be clear. It wasn't like I was like, oh yeah, I want to run. I was like, this is a challenge I want to do, but I actually hated running. And then ended up being part of this running club for like 7 years, right? And you meet people, you find out, like, oh my gosh, in addition to the fact that we're both suffering as we run together, but you love gardening. You work in this political campaign over here, and you're out in the community doing things, right? Like, you broaden your horizons. And I feel like that's one of the best things about friendships, is being able to cheer on the cool things other people are doing, and being able to be like proud and like, is that how your brain is working right now?
Yeah, nourishing.
What do you do?
Yeah.
How did you do that? Wait, you have what hobby? You're making a banjo? I don't understand. You taught yourself how to edit yesterday? You editing things? How did this happen, right?
Yeah.
You're being nosy, right?
Yeah.
You see the smile, right? Because I don't know what happened over here. But she was just like, yeah, I'm going to do it. Just like that. I'm going to do it.
I didn't make the banjo. I did the editing.
Right, the edit. I just did stuff.
Amazing. So I think this is a really good time for a sister friend
Yes.
check-in.
Sisterhood check-in.
Yeah, I wonder why they call it sisterhood.
I don't know.
Yeah, I like sister friend better.
Sister friend.
Some of this is
Okay.
sister friend. So regardless, I want to know from you, what kind of things do friends need to do to help you have a sense of safety? And maybe who are those people that do that for you?
That's a great question. And, I really value safety and security in relationships. And so it is an important thing to me. I think the friends that provide safety are the friends who are low criticism,
Okay.
high acknowledgement, right, around, in both ways, around things that like I do well, but also things I need to improve on. Because I'm open to being told like, hey, you could address this, but I'm very sensitive to criticism.
Yeah.
And so it's like the way that people offer that, and so I think I feel safe when people can tell me the truth and hold up the mirror, but do it with love. It doesn't mean it always feels good or it's always gentle, right? I feel safe when, and I think of the friends who are like curious to know me, and want to know my heart, and are willing to cry with me, but also laugh with me, right? Like that both and to say, I'm here. We can have a good time, and your feelings get to show up no matter like what they are, right? And I'm a fusser, and so when I'm mad, I don't get real mad very often. But part is because I'm a fusser, and so if I've got 2 minutes to be like, now right, like whatever the situation is, I'm gonna need just a second to be like, and so I appreciate the friends that are just like, yeah, tell me. Tell me what's going on. What they do? Let me let you know, right? That those are things that make, like the friends that make me feel seen and heard, but also the friends that allow me to see and hear them. Because that's the other thing about safety. I'm not okay with I'm the one that's going to be vulnerable and you're going to take care of me, or I'm the one that's going to have emotional capacity and I'm not going to get to know what's happening for you, right? I don't want that, right? Like, I want there to be give and take. I want there to be space. And I do believe that there are places in relationship where it's like, this is a hard season. Mm-hmm. And so maybe this is a time period. So the balance isn't like that, right? Mm-hmm. But again, it's like balance and fairness over time. Mm-hmm. And those are the relationships that I really value and feel safe in.
Yeah, because it really sounds like you're talking about authenticity.
Yeah.
So it's not just the person being a sounding board for you and never really allowing you to see them, mm-hmm. but it's you two seeing each other.
Exactly. We see each other.
Yep, the whole person.
Yes,
the whole person. And that helps you like nourish your soul. Mm-hmm. Like, oh my goodness, I am holding space for a person who holds space for me.
That's right.
Yep,
exactly.
True reciprocity.
It is.
So who are those people?
Am I giving like shout outs? Am I naming names? Is that what's
happening?
No,
do we want to name names? It's up to you.
Listen, I mean, there are some amazing people in my life, right? Like, one of them is sitting right next to me that I feel so blessed to have.
You know that's what I was really trying to get to.
Is that what it was? Is that what it was?
Who are these people? Like, who are these people?
Right. But I mean, I feel pretty blessed, right? Like, one of my longest relationships, right, is with my best friend from high school. Wow. Like, we've known each other since 9th grade. You met her.
Right.
That's right. Like she, like, I mean, she's an amazing person today, but I really cherish the fact that, like, she knows me as like you said, as a kid, mm-hmm. and there are ways that we grew up together,
right? And
it was ebb and flow, right? Because we went to college apart, like, things happened. There were times in the relationship where we were like closer versus further.
Yeah.
Right before we started filming, she texted actually.
Oh wow!
Because I haven't talked to her in like a week and a half.
Like, where you been?
Like, what's she doing? Come on, right? We've been busy.
Yeah.
And so, oh my goodness, like, so grateful, right? My college best friend, right? Like, who you also met, right?
Yeah.
Like, people, and these are like long-standing folks, right? But I agree to your point also that the depth of relationship isn't just based off of time.
Yeah.
Right?
I
because
appreciate that.
One of the things that happened with us was that, we were in each other's orbit for a minute, right? And then when we had an opportunity to be with each other, I didn't feel like it took time to know. I felt like we were like we opened the door.
Yeah.
And then it was like, Monica, hello.
Yeah. First it was like a work colleague. We have projects to complete together. And then it was, hey, do you want to have lunch? And I was like, yes. Mm-hmm. And then it took off from there. Yeah.
Next thing you know, my brother is like leaning into the camera, like, what's this conversation that I was overhearing with his baby, right? And he's like, who is this? Oh, this is Monica?
Oh, okay. I appreciated that too. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, right? Your son getting to pop over.
Oh, I know. Again, sharing our families.
Yes. It's a precious thing
to
be able to do that.
But
anyways, I'm talking too much. But I'm very grateful to the different friendship pockets and the different friendship circles that I have, because they touch our lives in different ways.
And they've helped you to grow.
Oh my,
for sure.
Please.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
All these branches. So my sister friend check-in for you is really about sort of change over time. So I'm curious, right? Like, what kind of friend are you today? How has the way that you like sort of do friendship, how has that sort of like shifted and changed for you? And what kind of friend do you want to become?
Wow. Yeah. It's so interesting because the evolution of friendship has always been something so curious to me. I really thought that I would be the person that would carry their friends with them and we would grow over time. And so many of my long-term friends, for whatever reason, probably for several reasons, we've drifted apart. We see each other and there's so much love in the room from the memories that we hold for each other. So there definitely is a reverence to our history and an acknowledgement we're not taking each other any further. A really good example of that of when I went to a high school reunion. And I ran into all my loves, my locker partner, my homeroom partner, my, best friend that used to bring lunch to me, a friend of mine I cut class with and who helped me pass biology. Like all of these women and men who circled me, rallied behind me, validated my experience, filled my cup, gave me safety. So, one of the things that you mentioned, I definitely am a living example of this idea that I'm not holding any malice for them. And at the same time, it's a both and. And at the same time, we are not going to call each other. We're not going to make time to go hang out or have coffee or go to have lunch. And that part makes me sad. So I hold a lot of reverence for those memories, but I also hold a lot of grief for those memories because it makes me wonder, and I'm really curious about how come that is. Like I will watch other people have a history, same as you had mentioned about your friends, and there is an effort and an intentionality around, remaining in contact with each other. So there definitely has been a lot of work through therapy and other means of healing, both around how was I showing up, probably much more selfish than I was now, and really not able to reciprocate the amount of validation and support and how friends were a resource and family for me that I do now. So there was an evolution of me. And there's also an evolution of all the many ways that I have changed and become invested in things that weren't necessarily the original investment before. So yes, I still like to go out, but I'm not a drinker anymore. So I've, lost that group of friends that wants to experiment with cocktails and go out to certain bars. And, then there are the friends that I have that are foodies. And so, every other day they want to go to a restaurant. I'm, learning recipes. So I have, made connections with individuals that like to cook and want to trade recipes instead. I have, moved to the suburbs. And originally it was, for my son, and have stayed there. And so I have friends that are in the city, and it really is for them more about proximity and activity. So you're not necessarily gonna want to spend a lot of time with an individual that doesn't drink, isn't gonna want to go to a restaurant every other day. You have to drive to, although there's parking in the suburbs, I do have to say that. So I think the type of friend I was really centered around activities. And now the friends that I have and the friend that I am, it's really centered around how can I be a resource versus these are the things I want to give you as a friend. And so the evolution of who I am as a friend has really turned into how can I be more curious about how I show up as a resource and as a companion to someone else's life versus what can we give each other in exchange for growth and development.
So it sounds like it sounds like at one point in time you recognize that there is and I don't like this word, I don't have a better one in this moment, but you're talking about some pieces that might have felt transactional.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Sort of being present, sort of being, and that sort of being a core piece. And then you're also talking about lifestyle and interest changing and evolving over time. And that might mean closing out some relationships and opening up other relationships that are more aligned with where you are right now.
Exactly. And I think the type of friend that I'd like to be is to continue to have that openness and not decide on what friendship will look like, and instead really appreciate where I am with the friends that I have. And I think, that's what makes them so special. They're like jewels, precious jewels, because I not only have reverence for them, I not only have, really good, solid experiences with them and memories that I cherish and I hold, but I also allow them to show me something different and new about myself. And like you were saying, it's not always comfortable. Like I don't need somebody telling me things that I need to, enhance who I am. And I definitely don't want to be called out for, something that I created that is painful for the other person. And at the same time, if you don't tell me, then how will I take a look at, healing that part of me that shows up not in alignment with you, but instead in contrast to who we are as friends.
Yeah. Which I think is a gift, right? Because sometimes our friends can see parts of us that we can't see, right? And so, sometimes it means something that's happening in the relationship. Other times they're like, have you noticed that, like this past weekend, someone said to me, have you noticed that you keep double booking yourself? And I was like, have I noticed? Do I actually answer your words, or do I respond to what the point is that you're making, right? About how are you managing time, right? And what does that mean? And it's like, yeah, that's real feedback, right? Like you only would say that to me because you love me and you want me to be aware of something that might have a negative impact. Yeah. Right? And it's things like that, right? Like our friends should be folks that can tell us those kinds of things. Yeah. And they also should be friends that can go, hold on a second. Why don't you open up your calendar right now? Let's look at this, because maybe I can help you shift some things that you can't see, right? They should be folks that are like, oh my goodness, you just did something amazing, right? Let's celebrate, right? Like I'm thinking about rank or promotion, right? like oh my gosh, right? Like there's just a career thing that just shifted for you. Let's celebrate that, right? Right? Like our friends should celebrate with us. They should love us. They should uplift us, and that piece around accountability, right? Yeah. How do they support the growth?
Yeah. Wow. We talked about so much. The components of friendship. We talked about how friendship ebbs and flows, wax and wanes. We talked about, healing from the grief of friendships that have been lost for whatever reason. We talked about the changing times of friendship. I'm really curious about, what you all have to say about friendships. Maybe put in the comment section, friends that you remember and maybe a memory that you hold. That friend that you grew away from, not necessarily out of, and are holding space for them in your heart still.
One of the other things I'm hoping that you all will do is, is there a part of friendship we didn't talk about? Put a question that you have down there. Tell us some things that we should talk about in upcoming episodes, but also send this episode to your best friend. Yeah. Right? So that we can keep the conversation going, because our goal here is to build connection and build community, and we want to keep talking with you all. So
make sure you like, follow, subscribe, and share, and subscribe. And then we'll see you next time on Watch Your Mouth.
Sounds good, friends.
Bye.